If you have ever been a baby, this might shock you.
Humans across the globe are becoming increasingly less fertile.
Less people are having children around the world.
We could be facing a baby crisis.
Around the world, people are having fewer kids, especially in richer, more developed nations like the United States.
Births in Japan have hit a record low.
Italy's national birth rate has fallen to its lowest level on record.
And this baby bust is already causing serious problems. From cash to culture to climate change, from Gen Z gender wars to robot romance, we'll find out where exactly have all the babies gone? Can we fix flopping fertility? And what does this all mean for the future of humanity?
I have a weird, crazy dream to have kids.
I do want kids, I think, eventually.
If I marry someone really rich.
I always say I would have loved to have 6 kids.
There's no right number of kids to have, but when it comes to population and fertility, the magic number is 2.1. That's the average number of kids needed to keep a population steady. An average of more than 2.1 babies means a population will trend upward. If the average is lower, the population falls. In the United States, fertility rates are at a historic low of 1.7 births per woman. It's not just an issue for the Stars and Stripes. A lot of other countries are also seeing record lows. Australia is down to 1.5 births per woman. Italy averages 1.2. And some countries, like China, Japan, and South Korea, have fallen to less than 1 child. Globally, the total fertility rate is now 2.2 kids. That's less than half of what it was in 1950. Still, the total number of people on Earth is actually still growing. But the pace at which it's growing has declined dramatically. Based on current projections by the UN, global population is projected to peak sometime in the mid-2080s at 10.4 billion and fall from there. Some reactions to falling fertility have been pretty drastic, leading to claims that it could be an existential threat, the beginning of the end for humanity.
If we don't make enough people to at least sustain our numbers, perhaps increase a little bit, then civilization is going to crumble.
I have good news and bad news. The good, people are living longer than they used to. The bad, with longer lives and fewer kids, you end up with a growing population of elderly people and a shrinking group of young people going into the workforce. And that can be a serious problem.
When there is a declining birth rate, there are impacts in terms of less people available to work. So very often there will be less people who will have to actually pay for also the pensions of people who have retired, but also people that will have to pay for, in general, everything that we consume.
Right now, only about 18% of the US is over 65 years old, but that number is growing. And around the year 2100, the country's population is expected to drop. In Japan, a country famous for its aging population, with 30% of people over 65, the population is already shrinking. That means less innovation and fewer chances of something new and exciting to happen.
So we observe a higher tendency of countries that have aging populations or declining population to also report talent shortages. People contribute to the labor market and to the value creation with their work, with their ideas, with their innovation.
Of course, there are other downsides. The whole baby thing isn't just about economic utility. A baby deficit means adorability plummeting worldwide. It means smaller families, fewer siblings, and what The Atlantic called the Great Cousin Decline. Do you really want to live in a world without cousins?
Huh?
Well, I guess that depends on your cousins. So we're curious as to why you think, people are having fewer kids, and if, it's a good or it's a bad thing that the number's going down.
I think people are being more intentional about it. I think they look a bit chaos. People are deciding that they can live a happy life without having to have kids as well.
And we're all really isolated from each other. We don't have as many support systems in the same way.
I think you could adopt people that are already here.
We don't have to have the American dream, baby. We're chilling.
There's no one simple answer as to exactly why this is all happening.
Both of my siblings have chosen not to have children, and money is a big reason why, and I totally respect that.
You theoretically eventually need an extra bedroom, so that becomes more expensive.
Like, I'd have to have my own house if I ever wanted kids.
I couldn't even afford a kid if I wanted to.
Technically, making a baby is free, and yet raising a kid can be incredibly expensive. In many of the countries experiencing a bear market for babies, the cost of raising a kid to adulthood comes to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And over the last few years, a number of the low birth rate countries have been coping with the cost of living crisis, marked by inflation driving up prices of goods and services. A 2024 Pew study found 41% of young Americans said the reason they weren't having kids was because they just can't afford it.
People are not saying it's that they don't have a desire to have children. It's not that there's a lack of desire in reproduction. It's that people are saying, I don't have the resources to have those many kids. I don't have the financial resources. I haven't been able to attain the education that I want. I am unable to own a home in this country for, X, Y, and Z reason.
If you can't afford it, honestly, you shouldn't have kids. Yeah.
One of the most intimidating costs is childcare. It's basically like paying a second rent. In countries where it's most expensive, a family would have to spend about a third of their income on childcare for 2 kids. In fact, the 2022 UK protest, known as the March of the Mummies, saw British mothers actually take to the streets, demanding the government lower costs, which gets us to another major factor in why fertility is floundering. Around the world, women have fought for and won the right to pursue careers of their choosing. Young girls have more access to education, and teen pregnancy rates have tumbled worldwide.
A general trend that we've seen across countries, as people have improved living standards, there has been higher education levels, also higher participation of women. All these trends have probably contributed into declining birth rates, and I think they're all very positive trends in themselves. So that's something that has been one of the drivers.
Along with family planning options like birth control, women more often have the freedom to pick how many kids they want to have and when they want to have them. But before you go blaming the baby breakdown on any one gender, you should know there's something weird going on with young people these days. I'll spill the tea. It's not just how they talk that's different. They're increasingly delaying important life milestones like moving out of their parents' houses. They're having less sex than previous generations and high-key struggling to form romantic relationships.
Now, instead of going boy crazy, women are choosing to go boy sober.
Nearly half of Gen Z men are not dating.
Nearly 70% of Gen Z and millennials report feeling lonely.
They're not hanging out, and no, they're not even hooking up.
So in some cases, we're seeing a lot of countries having these loneliness ambassadors, for instance, or ministers of loneliness. And on the one hand, we might think, well, how does that really relate to fertility? It relates an awful lot to these demographic questions, because part of the question is also, is there an available mating pool? Is there a partnership pool for people?
Countries are seeing a record-breaking surge of singletons. In Japan, more than a third of all households consist of just one person. Because what we're seeing isn't just a failure of fertility. It's a giant shift in the basic ways people meet each other, pair up, and build decent conditions for kids. A recent Forbes survey of dating app users shows more than 3/4 of Gen Z and millennials burned out from the churn and stress of online dating.
I hate dating apps.
Swipe, so many options.
Dating apps open up a world of possibilities and also maybe some decision paralysis.
Yeah, it seems like people aren't really interested in long-term relationships. I think that's fading away more and more. I think it's because of the overstimulation. I think it's because of the apps. I think it's because of social media and a lot of things. Always desiring that better thing. I think that's what social media makes you feel.
Maybe nowhere is the host of baby blocking problems, both economic and cultural, more acute than South Korea, the country with the world's lowest fertility rate. Not only is it the most expensive country to raise a kid, but kids are unwelcome in many businesses and public spaces. More than 80% of South Korea's dating app users are men, with women increasingly frustrated by a patriarchal society, the high cost of childcare, and men who they feel won't respect their career choices and ambitions. According to a 2023 Gallup survey, more than 40% of South Korean women say they have no interest in interacting with men at all. And while South Korea might be the most extreme example, it's a pattern we're starting to see in other places too. It's probably not going to help that when it comes to romance, some reports show people turning to AI. That's artificial intimacy. Apparently, human relationships have become such a hassle that so-called AI girlfriends are catching on, particularly with younger men. Not to mention high-tech sex dolls and robots for both women and men, whose makers claim they'll soon rival the real thing.
There's certain parts of these use of AI and chatbots and avatars and similar kind of social technologies. Some people are using for sexual activity, we know that. And a lot of it is also for emotional connection. and feeling like you have some others in your social network, and perhaps helping people self-regulate for feelings of psychological loneliness. Whether or not those are going to really start to impact people's sex lives and relationships, I think we're just on the precipice of asking those questions because the technology has exploded so much.
But one thing's for sure, try as she might, Silicon Sally probably won't do much to boost fertility numbers either. In the 2024 Pew study of young American adults, 40% gave concerns about the state of the world as the reason they were unlikely to have children. And 30% said they were skipping kids due to concerns about the environment.
There are some people who say there's too many people on this planet. There's a lot of folks that say if we take an environmental view, in fact, maybe we're reaching capacity for our ability to have clean drinking water and our ability to have enough food production and our ability to control carbon in the environment.
Environmentally, we don't need so many more people. It's already a bit of a catastrophe that we're headed toward.
And I think it's just like a really scary time in terms of environmental shifts to like think about a new generation kind of being confronted with that.
You know, what is the world going to look like 50, 100 years from now? So like bringing kids into this world feels kind of irresponsible.
The woes of the world are freaking out prospective parents.
One way I described it during COVID is you'll never see two gazelle mating in front of a lion. And if the world feels like a lion to us, that doesn't ramp up mating psychology. We start to damp down on all of that. And it could be that we're going through a period that is characterized by more psychological threat than we've experienced before.
Any doctor will tell you, babies need good vibes. And it seems like people are looking around and deciding that the vibes are just not that great. Unfortunately, no one's really tackling the vibe situation directly. But the majority of countries with low fertility have taken other steps to turn things around. There are some governments that have introduced kind of benefits or programs to encourage people to have kids. What do you think of those?
I think it's great, but they just gotta pay for the kids too.
I feel like the government shouldn't be getting involved.
It just seems like the encouragement isn't coming from a genuine place.
I guess friendly encouragement is fine, but it'd be pretty weird if there was some sort of mandate.
So, how do you get people to make more babies? Most countries trying to boost fertility have leaned into policies that focus on economics. That might mean making childcare cheaper and more widely available. Some policies mandate or expand maternity and paternity leave. Others offer tax breaks and incentives like payments to parents. In South Korea, cities host their own singles mixers to stimulate the local romance economy. Some Korean workers and lawmakers have even proposed a 4-day work week. In theory, less time at your business means more time for getting down to business. All these interventions might seem like logical responses. And while some countries have seen modest improvements, none of these pro-natal policies seem to be working very well so far.
A lot of governments are concerned and they're rushing to solutions, and we don't have enough evidence, we don't have enough research. The answer isn't just tightening the screws to put up more regulations or encourage people with, financial incentives to reproduce more. We know historically that probably isn't going to work that well.
Of course, countries do have another answer to falling populations: immigration. Bringing in outside working age people can help even out demographic imbalance as births tumble and populations get older. Still, in many developed countries, introducing mass immigration at levels that would make up for falling fertility would be politically difficult, to say the least.
The extent to which it's a feasible solution depends on the situation in the country, including polarization and actually the capacity also of countries to then integrate workers and migrant workers into society. So there are some countries that have actually managed to do it in a very effective way, Switzerland to some extent, but also others, and not every country has managed. So it's one solution, it's not necessarily the silver bullet for every country.
I mean, what's left to try? Federal subsidies for candlelight dinners and long walks on the beach, the establishment of a national strategic infant reserve.
Very often it's more about mitigating and adapting. So looking at the pension systems, looking at the workforce practices and the workforce productivity. So it's really looking at the workforce in a holistic manner.
Even as developed countries wrestle with the impact of tilting demographics, it's worth remembering. We just don't really know how falling fertility will shake out globally or in the long term.
We don't fully know, but if I had to make a guess, my guess is that we are a species that for over 4 million years have formed intense connections with other people. It's part of our legacy. It's part of our physiology. It's part of how we socialize and live and thrive. I don't think that's going to go away.
Even if fertility rates continue falling and the world population does begin to drop, it's very hard to say what only having 5 billion people on Earth would mean for someone in the future. It's possible that in 100 or 500 years, concerns over labor shortages, immigration, and dating apps might just be a distant memory of a seemingly ancient world. But as a meteorologist might say, it's hard to make predictions, especially about the future.